So for today's call, as we start 2023, we wanted to reach out to the group. We wanted to use today to highlight what we've done in the past inside of the researcher-facing track. The researcher-facing track got started in 2018, so we want to talk about, are there possibly tracks that or conversations that we should rekindle, we should get going again. Also, is there, we had a good year in 2022 of conferences between PEARC, Supercompute, and now there's an RCD focus inside of EDUCAUSE. So that's another conference that's providing great professionalization and outreach for this organization. So also here to talk about, what are you working on? What are you sweating about right now at work? What are the areas where you could really use the community discussion around to help look for folks and that you could be collaborating with to solve problems? So that's really what we want to do today. I want to make sure you should see Martin just posted the call doc in the chat. So let's use the chat to kind of think through if you have any ideas for what you would like to be focusing on next year. The call doc is opening up for me right here, and I think I have my screen shared, so I can just quickly show you that call doc. If you scroll down to the announcements, there is a link that I want to put in for everybody. This is a Google form that outlines all the different topics that we've had since our inception, or maybe just over the last 2 years. Tobin put this together for us. You know, if there's any topics in there that maybe we should be revisiting, what I put together here on this slide is since 2019, this is the attendance records of this CARC call. And I don't have any real data behind, attendance, as attendance have more to do with the phase of the moon or your calendars. But it looks like, if I look at over the last 3 years of call topics, it looks like we had 174 people on a call around research with containers, supporting research with containers. So that was a full conversation. We had a lot of people talking about containerization, how it's being used in the research space, how HPCs use it, how we use that for provisioning servers for that research space. So maybe that's something that we should think about revisiting. Was everybody got that form link? I thought it would be interesting if I could see if everybody's in there. Maybe we've got some content that I could see if I can see the results, or maybe it's you, Tobin, that has the results to that. But yeah, I am not going in as the owner of that at the moment. But looking back at these call topics, are there anybody that sees topics in here that you would maybe like to revisit?
Justin, there's posts in chat already about revisiting containers from several people.
Great. Containers.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All containers all the time, and I quote.
Well, I do remember from that call, all of a sudden realizing, there was a little string of a conversation there about how we need to look at containers as research data. It's a great way to bundle research, and especially in this day and age of sharing your research, that's a fantastic way to standardize and wrap up the research and the algorithms and the tools that go into the reproducibility. And so I had never thought of container as a research data type. Underrepresented research domains I see is coming up. That is definitely, I work inside of the research support space at Michigan State University. So We have a strong HPC unit, so I tend to hear more from the non supercomputer users, and that is kind of the the underrepresented group, and they're really struggling with how to get resources, how to get those tools, especially with AI and different ways of application development and coding and algorithms, and how to get support in that space, because it's a heavier lift for a lot of those people. So
it's yeah, I mean, it's funny you say that, Justin, because I am at MSU, I'm at ISA.
Oh,
and,
great.
Yeah, we definitely, one of the things we want to do is reach out to more of those people. And yeah, it's difficult because they don't know what they don't know, and they it's an intimidating thing, HPC. So we should probably meet sometime, or drag you into an ISA meeting and make you talk about that stuff.
That would be great, Alan. Thanks for chiming in and being on the call today. Welcome. Great.
Yeah, these are really great topics. I'm just trying to compare to the problems I see working with researchers every day, as we all do. I think checkpoint and restore has been something I keep wanting to figure out how to make progress on, especially with bioinformatics codes, ancient single-threaded bioinformatics codes. So I don't know if that's
I think
it's in profiling, and
yeah, I've heard that bioinformatics is lots of data, can become very complicated, and it's a resource that I know we're lacking here on my campus and Alan's campus, and we're trying to solve that. So definitely.
Yeah, maybe just that topic in general might be a one.
Okay, we'll make sure we get that in the notes. Thank you, Alan. I see orientating researchers to RC and data resources. Great. Yes, integrating HPC with research data management and sharing. That is a big topic with Tobin is shaking your head. You have some thoughts, Tobin?
No, I think that like those two things are often siloed, like the HPC people are in one place and the data people are in a different place. And I'm lucky enough to work on a team where I am in the same office with the HPC support people. And I think it's really great that they are interested and want to collaborate with me. So yeah, I think it's been very synergistic.
Great.
One thing that's not listed on here at all, but is kind of connected to a lot of this stuff, especially things like the research data storage, is a general open science push that's happening in a lot of federal agencies. So NASA, for example, is doing their year of open science, and they have this transform to open science package which they're running, which involves a lot of like training, workshops, and so on. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a lot of researchers coming to us asking about, how do I make my research public? How do I securely store my data so that I can then release it? All that kind of packaging concerns, anything with source code, programming stuff that I think might be coming down the pipeline in the near future.
Great. I was looking through, that will lead me to this next slide. I'll go ahead and jump in here. I did see that we did, as one of our talks in the fall, was a PEARC 22 recap, and that NASA Open Science was flagged in the notes for that call doc. Also on our website for researcher facing, you can hit our in the people network, you can hit the researcher facing track, and Tobin has got all of the previous calls and call doc, and most of the videos are in there as well. So you can go ahead and look at the old calls and see some of the notes from these previous conversations that we just profiled. So open science is definitely happening. We have the 25th of this month, the requirement with the NIH with their new data management and sharing policy is a reflection of that federal push to make all their agencies start to dive into how they're going to hit that open science push or that open data sharing. So I think that we're seeing it bubble to the surface in different policies at different agencies. So at PEARC 22, one thing that especially CARC did a lot of work with was around the student workforce development. So that was a topic that was one of the tracks. And I know people on this call today were part of that. Also, there, as I think back to Boston, when I was there, going in to see different cloud computing for research is always a good topic. When I was thinking about the conversations was Suresh Srinivas was speaking about collaboration from me to we, and how important it is to start to look around and do a better job of collaborating. And then another conversation with Dr. Howard from OSU, the Dean of Engineering, was around AI disruption through inclusion. So I think that's a continuing theme from 2022 that we need to take into 2023, is how do we open these doors to make it more inclusive so that people do feel more approachable to go into the HPC to get support, even if they don't understand Linux systems and command line. How can we start to make our services more inclusive across campus? The more we can do that, the more utilization we'll get from our services, and I think we'll raise the bar on the type of research we're doing at our university. So I think that's a very important topic. Anybody else at PEARC 22 that was in something interesting?
There were a lot of things interesting, Justin. And many of the things that I had the opportunity to work for was for the workforce development track. And so I think that we have one of the, best papers actually came from that track, right? And also the field award. So a lot of things happening related to the workforce development track, and things related to training and education too. So it would be work, maybe revisiting some of those topics. I think that the best paper, some of the conversations that were around, the different perspectives of men and women when they look for, applying for a job or things that incentive people to focus on, as a motivation to continue in the workforce. Right. Would be things that it would be need to continue looking at and see, how is really the community doing with that regard.
For sure. Great. Thanks, Gladys. I was not at Supercompute, but going through some of the topics when I was looking at the agenda topics, empowering STEM women, skills for success, quantum computing, I saw lots of that there. HPC in the cloud, those are all areas that we have not covered in researcher facing, so that would be good. Alan, Alan Sill, you had some thoughts on topics at Supercompute?
That's at SC22, or
Yes.
Yes. Yes, so we did have a number of very interesting BOFs and panels. HPC Wire has been doing a great job of summarizing. There were actually, unbeknownst to me, dozens of sessions that touched on this in one way or another, but the whole idea of the climate impacts of computing, both positive in the sense that we use climate to model, computing to model climate, and also negative in the sense that we are big energy users. We're covered in a number of things. I helped lead a BOF on this topic, which was packed. I was really surprised. And there was a follow-up actually workshop just a couple weeks later where we decided to start writing a document a prescriptive document on on steps you can take to reduce the carbon footprint of high performance computing. So there was a BOF on that topic and a number of other sessions where it came up. Thanks for the opportunity to talk about that. I don't actually think I put anything in the chat about it, but I won't miss that opportunity because I think it's an important topic. So there will be, as a result of the workshop, which had a few dozen people attending either in person or remotely, there'll be an open public document through the Open Grid forum. We're going to try to write basically a user's manual on how to reduce your personal computing footprint as well as what steps centrists can do on this topic. The basic message is this is not an evangelism topic anymore. People, every time with the subject comes up, people say, I'm already doing X and so, but nobody's writing down that list of X and so. So that's going to be the current effort.
Thank you. Are there others? Please raise your hand or pop in that might have some thoughts from different professional development that you've been part of this year.
I went to EDUCAUSE this year, and most of the sessions that I attended were about cybersecurity and kind of complying with, you know, the acronym soup of new requirements, especially for government data. And I've never really seen like a good breakdown of kind of like, why is this landscape changing so quickly right now? And like, what do you actually need to know about it to support research? Because right now it's just sort of like you ask the cybersecurity person, and they tell you where to put data that's like this. And I'd like to have a more of a working knowledge of like kind of behind the scenes, like what's the rationale behind this and how do I actually like give people advice on this?
Yeah, that's a good point, Tobin. I know we're navigating that. And someone earlier I saw posted in there kind of the controlled research space. NIST 800-171 has been required for controlled unclassified information for a number of years now, but any DoD related activity that does generate controlled unclassified information requires that control, and they have a new cybersecurity maturity model certification that's going to be dropping this spring or summer, and so we're positioning here at MSU around that for any controlled research. There is a NSF funded program that has great outreach work from Carolyn Ellis at UC San Diego, and I know there's others on this call from UC San Diego. So there's some great materials out there around those topics that can help people.
So Justin, I think I missed the ping to me because you were talking about supercomputing sessions, and I missed my opportunity to talk about the thing I wanted to bring up, which is the hpc.social social media effort.
Sure.
But I'm happy to do that at the end of the call.
Okay. Yeah, and if you have any links or things you can share with the full group, please use chat for that. That would help all of us take a look at that as well. Anybody else on the steering committee seeing anything I'm missing as far as topics you want to take over?
Justin, I did send you a link to the form if you want to share the results. There's a bar chart, but it's kind of hard to read the labels, unfortunately.
That's okay. Oh, there it is. There's the responses. Okay. So creating effective, whatever that is, seems to be getting a lot. So I'll have to come up with a better way. Maybe I can flag it here. Creating effective training
materials.
There we go. There's a label for us. So that's got 5 votes. Thanks for those that have voted. The open on demand. Looks like the highest vote getter is supporting researchers using containers. So that matches the chat. And then research data storage. as well as workflow tools for reproducibility, data analysis, reducible data analysis. Zero on user support. I'm sure that's more to do with the number of votes going on. Great, thanks, Tobin.
There's another topic area that I don't know if anyone else is interested in. I'm spending a lot of time kind of figuring out how best to manage teams in a hybrid world,
Yeah.
And I think that has an impact in, research teams and working with researchers. And so that's sort of a meta topic in a way, but could be an interesting topic to talk about, maybe.
Thanks, Annalie. We've done these sessions where we bring different CaRC people network facings together. So it would be interesting to bring in the researcher facing maybe systems and talk about how we navigate from the research facilitators back to the sysadmins to the researchers themselves. Yeah, that's a good topic.
And maybe even where that might be spurring innovations, like new ways of working that might be interesting to talk about too.
Yes. Carrie, you want to talk about your last post there?
Yeah, I don't know if I can elaborate too much, just that research software engineers it's a phrase that we see a lot more now, and it's kind of an up and coming, I don't want to say it's getting a lot more visibility. And so I'd like to discuss more about how these research software engineers are positioned in other units, and how their roles and what they do or interface with researchers is different from what we've seen traditionally in the researcher facing roles.
Great. Thank you, Carrie, who is also a member of our steering committee. Thank you.
So I've been involved with a group of organizations trying to figure out if there's a way to extend automated software builds of the sort that are being done in the large scale projects like the exascale compute project to better match the needs of medium to large scale, but not exascale centers. So it's continuous integration, continuous deployment. These letters CI and CD each get used for other things, but that's what we mean. CI/CD for medium to large scale HPC centers. We realized if we do this and combine with the recent, for example, SPAC capabilities to have pre-built executables, we might actually set the framework for a set of software that could be deployed at small scale centers just as a side effect, essentially. But the group has come together mostly around its own needs for building software, which, as you know, is a very tedious. So the general topic would be building software for HPC centers.
Okay.
And, I'd be happy to report on what we've been doing.
Great. Thanks, Alan. Amy Neeser?
Yeah, Alan, I was actually thinking about similar topic and SPAC, and we're looking at this too. And I was kind of thinking of it, maybe also exploring like the human component of it too. Like what are different teams' processes for like, how do researchers like submit requests for software? How do they submit, like what versions they need? What is the process for like communicating to those researchers, and just hearing about what other teams are doing with that, and then how these tools like SPAC can help automate aspects of that. But I think the human angle to this is interesting as well.
Yeah, you're right. And so automatically, if you start on this, and this is where we've gotten to, is several times we sit down and we make the list of things that need to be done, and training looms so large that it almost is its own thing.
Yes, the training. Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, just to make the problem clear to folks who haven't had the time to think about it, there's a big gap between the automated processes that build the few dozen large applications that are used at the exascale centers and guaranteed to scale and guaranteed to have a support team. There's a big gap between that and what we do in our daily lives at most academic RCD centers, which is we support hundreds of applications, sometimes thousands, depending on the scale, with a highly diverse, let's just say, set of inputs and sources. And so this is the gap between the highly automated methods used at ACP and what we do in our daily lives. And we're trying to fill some of that gap.
It sounds like it might be a good like joint session or two-parter with the systems facing track where we could talk about like the how to implement it in systems facing and then how to help people use it in researcher facing.
Great idea.
I like it.
Well, this is a robust chat string going here. Thanks everybody for your content.
Justin, I'm capturing it, but it seems like a lot of echoing of around the subject of building software, different takes on that.
Okay.
And then there was a suggestion how other research-facing people now work with other organizations like libraries. And so there's some support for that one too. Yeah.
Okay. Great. Yeah, I recently spoke with somebody in the humanities and library space that's part of this email string, and they're always kind of looking for topics that grab them. And he was suggesting that he wasn't quite seeing a lot of topics that maybe brought him in from the humanities and space, but so maybe we can do a little better job in that. And David Reddy is plus oneing that idea. Great. And then from the historical conversations, that has been around, that's containerization popped as a strong force. So we'll make sure to add that and dive into the responses. So if you haven't already, please take a moment to add your thoughts, because also at the bottom of that form, there's a section where you can put your other ideas that come to mind from there. And we'll be digging through that as well to look for different ideas. And then our next steering committee meeting, we'll start to rank them and get them in order and start to lay out a better schedule so we can be ahead of the curve. One thing that I'm dealing with is the Google Workspace storage limits. Internet 2 has done a really good job of helping us bring universities together to understand how we are managing the licensing changes that are happening there. From a lot of universities were using the free tier from Google Workspace, which used to be called G Suites. And now we need to do a much better job of managing our users, managing our storage. We spoke about that a couple months ago a little bit. But if that's something that interests people, also in our CARC People Network leadership call yesterday, there was a call out seeing if people see identity management as a topic. Are people running into how you're managing identities in your org? Back out with single sign-on at the university and then access to these other communities. So that might be a topic as well, identity management. You know, that's a big topic here in IT services at Michigan State. Paula is talking about cloud in the chat. Right, how to pay for it, how to charge back. on cloud. Is that what you were getting at, Paula, there? Yeah, I know that that's constantly an issue. How do we manage our cloud services? How do we put guardrails? If we don't do something about the cloud service providers, if you don't build a service around that and have some guardrails, researchers are going to go out and do it on their own, and they are, and they're using their own personal accounts and are making those things difficult to manage and keep an eye on institutional data policy needs and things like that. Yeah, cloud terminology is kind of like, it's just, some of the leaders get tired of hearing cloud this, cloud that. It's just another service that we need to learn how to manage properly, and it gets a lot of emphasis, maybe over the top a little. So great. Any other thoughts out there?
What about like diversifying our workforce? I feel like that's something that we need to continually be coming back to until we feel satisfied with the status of that. And I think we're far from that. So some angle of that, that's a very big topic. So we could bite off one piece of that maybe and go deeper.
Yes, I like that. Thank you, Amy.
It might even, a way of approaching it might be, remember some of us, gosh, what was it, like 2 falls ago, were invited to, like the NSF invited us all to do like a full day workshop on diversifying our workforce, and we came up with recommendations for them. It might be interesting, like, you know, a year and a half later, let's revisit those and like, what did we recommend, and are we doing those things, and do these recommendations still make sense, or are there kind of new takes on this? So that could be a way of
Yeah, that'd be a way of structuring it.
So are people familiar with the CASC write-ups on this topic? It was a set of recommendations to the funding agencies, community, and CASC members on a number of topics. This was one of 4 top priority topics identified. I'll find a link and put it in the chat.
Thank you. Amy, was that workforce part of a CARC engagement with the NSF, or was that something separate?
I think it was a CARC. Who else was there? Reaching back into my memory banks, I'll have to dig and see what that was.
Good point, Paula. Thank you in the chat there. Well, you know, we've got this has been a pleasant surprise, the engagement we've had today. We've got 59 people on the call and lots of good topics. We really appreciate that. That will make Tobin and my job much easier in the steering committee as we're trying to parse. We've been needing to take a month, I think, like this and breathe and think through what everybody wants. So I appreciate your input. Maybe with that, Annalie, I could pass it off to you to kind of give us maybe some announcements, and then we can wrap it up and give some time back to everybody.
Just
And I'll stop
quickly,
sharing.
can I get some feedback in the chat about whether or not people would like to do calls like this, like maybe 2 or 3 times a year?
Shall I continue on with the announcements, or is that?
Yeah, no, I think if
Yeah,
folks
yeah, okay.
could enter in the chat if you liked this session, if you feel like maybe this is what we do every January, or maybe we do this in at the end of the year. So
Okay, great.
yeah, go ahead, Annalie. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone. Yeah, echoing, fantastic engagement, great suggestions. We have enough, I think, here for a couple of years worth of topics. So that's true. That's super. So just to wrap up, this call has been recorded, and we will be posting the recording not too long after today ends when we get to it, and we'll share out about that as always. You have access to the call document. If you want to continue to add thoughts in there, you can do so. And please, any other topics or voting for the topics on the link that was shared earlier is very welcome ongoingly. Or if your colleagues who couldn't come want to do that as well. Some announcements we have a topic plan for next month's meeting, which is on February 9th at 1 o'clock Eastern. Same time, same station, which is about access, all caps. So that's an acronym, Advanced Cyber Infrastructure Coordination Ecosystem. I actually didn't know, services and support. So I didn't know that's what access stood for. So that access program, which replaced Exceed in 2022. So we're going to be talking about that. Emerging centers track and systems facing track calls are coming up. Systems facing on the 19th. I'm not sure when emerging centers is. Maybe someone can fill me in there. And then a really important one is the CaRC parade. So on January 24th at 4 o'clock Eastern, particularly for anyone who might be more new to CaRC, or if you just want to kind of check back in on what all is happening now that it's kind of growing and expanding, you can learn more about the People Network, the working groups, and the operations that make up CaRC. Get a sense of whether you might want to contribute at some point, and just get a good solid overview beyond just this call. So that's 4 p.m. January 24th. Please, you all are welcome, and let others know as well. And then last thing is there has been mention of this HPC Social, which is a new multiple format social media movement that includes Mastodon, Slack, and Discord platforms and instances, community map, a syndicated blogs channel, podcasts, and etc. So you can find that at, I will drop that in the chat actually, hpc.social.
I forgot to mention the jobs board. I'll put it in there. There's a new jobs board, hpc.social/jobs.
Okay.
We opened it 2 days ago, and there are over 24 jobs posted already.
Fantastic. I believe those are all the announcements. So otherwise we can just close by thanking again all of the speakers today, which are all of you, for contributing, and the great chat discussions and the verbal contributions. Keep it coming. Our steering committee members, thank you all for being here and putting this together, and for the work that will come. And please stay in touch with us and let us know how we can make these calls more valuable to you. And I think with that, we can close, and we will see you next month on the 9th of February. Same time, same station. Thank you all so much. Have a wonderful rest of your week.